Hi, I'm Jim Doty.
And I'm Christina Dodge. Welcome to Dialogue.
Our guest today is Wylie, an internationally recognized trial lawyer who's dedicated his law practice to seeking justice for those who've suffered extraordinary injuries. These compelling cases often make headlines for the multi-million-dollar awards they receive, but it's really the gripping human stories that make each of these cases particularly remarkable. Welcome to the show, Wylie.
Well, thank you. Happy to be here with both of you.
Welcome.
You know, I know you've been involved in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cases. And we're only going to be talking about a few of them. And we have a news clips that we'd like to share some of those cases. So let's take a look at those now before we begin the show.
Very good.
5 years old at the time, was asked what's most difficult for her now.
Making friends, mostly.
Why is that?
Because everybody makes fun of me, and they call me cat girl and things like that.
Laura lost the sight in one eye, partial use of one arm, and she still walks with a limp. Harold?
Our top story this evening, fines are levied against Disneyland in connection with an accident that left a tourist dead and 2 other people injured last December.
Cal OSHA has been looking into what happened here for some 3 months now. Tonight that report is out and it finds 2 violations here at the park led to that fatal accident.
The first violation involves the employee who was operating the ride. Cal OSHA says she wasn't properly trained.
Ends his dream. Now he's helping others find a reason for living.
That's the irony in this situation. I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change it.
A Dateline survivor's story.
In the fall of 1985, 22-year-old Jim McLaren was a 6'5", 300-pound Yale All-American athlete and aspiring actor. His future appeared as unlimited as his ambitions.
It's October in New York City. I was on my motorcycle and it was just an evening that felt full of possibilities. And the next thing I remember was waking up naked in a hospital 8 days later after being in a coma. I was hit by a 40,000-pound New York City bus, dead on arrival.
Everybody reads about these cases, but they don't ever know the aftermath, the postscript to the story. So tell us a little bit about the Laura Small case.
Laura was 5 years old, and she was on a little walk with her mother after Mass over at the famous mission in San Juan Capistrano. Went into Casper's Park, which was basically represented as being a safe place to go and spend a nice Sunday afternoon after Mass. She was walking along the stream there and looking at tadpoles, and a mountain lion came out, grabbed her, carried her off into the brush. Her mother didn't even see the mountain lion because they are great stalkers and incredibly dangerous. And miraculously, a hiker came along and saved her life. But of course, she suffered very devastating injuries, paralysis on the right side, loss of eyesight in one of her eyes, badly facially scarred, and basically she was crushed around the skull.
How is she doing now?
She's doing great, with the caveat that she still has these very serious disabilities. And she is now at Arizona State University.
Oh, that's so good
she
to hear.
is, I believe, around 24 years of age now.
Wow.
She's about to
Think of her as
graduate.
a little girl.
Yeah.
She is, well, it happened back in 1986.
Yeah. So tell us about the Lou Wong case.
The Lou Wong story is amazing in 2 ways. And one, the fact that someone could come from Seattle, Washington on Christmas Eve with her 5-year-old son, her husband, and her grandchild, and suddenly see that a husband die in front of her, to see her own face torn half off, all in front of her 5-year-old child, because of what had happened on that particular ship, the Columbia, where the cleat had been allowed to rot. The poor lady who was operating had not been trained. They tied the line. The line was a nylon line that they replaced for cost purposes instead of hemp, and nylon stretches, so it turned into a rubber band, and a 35-pound cleat was hurled into the people standing on the dock, resulting in a death, major personal injury.
What's the postscript? How are they doing now?
Well, she's doing along. She lost 2 husbands.
Yeah, how's she doing now?
She's doing terrific. She has, the grandchild is now about to graduate and go into college. The other child is in high school. She's doing terrific, devoted to her family, devoted to her children, does charity work in the Seattle area, and is just a marvelous, marvelous human being.
What about Jim Knob?
Jim was sitting all by himself, stopped on his motorcycle, and a car collided in front of him, and one of them bounced off one car and came and pinned him up against the car behind him and rendered him a permanent paraplegic. And so he had no use of his legs. Jim picked himself up by his bootstraps and any other way he could pick himself up, and then went on to become the internationally famous wheelchair racer. He took wheelchair racing to a whole new dimension, to where it was on ESPN. He designed them, worked on them, had a company.
Huh.
And today he has his own foundation, and he's just was honored as the Long Beach State Hall of Fame, as well as being featured as a guest lecturer at the National Conference of Pole Vaulters. So Jim's still very active out there in the community. We have a situation with people like Jim where I remember what my Irish mother told me, and that is that I cried because I had no shoes until I saw the boy with no feet. One of the things that's even helped my family and my children and myself to thank what you have and to recognize how thankful we need to be. And then you see individuals who have these tragedies heaped upon them, and then you see how courageous and how special they are. And so it's an inspiration to me, my family, to the office, and everybody around me.
And speaking of Jims, what about Jim McLaren?
Well, Jim McLaren, this is a story that I have to say, the first time I heard it, I didn't believe it. So maybe when we talk about Jim, there'll be a little bit disbelief that this could happen to one individual. Jim was a Yale graduate from fine arts and drama, was going to be an actor. He was working in New York and had been a football player, lacrosse player. And in 1985, he gets hit by a bus in New York through no fault of his own.
He was walking, or
he was. I think he also was on a motorcycle, and the bus went through a light.
Okay.
One of the city buses in New York. Now, I did not handle that case, and then I'll tell you how I get involved in Jim's life. Jim then, at 22, has lost his leg. He's an amputee, very above the knee amputee. Jim decides he wants to continue on with his life and not let anything beat him. So he gets a special amputee device and learns how to do the marathon. And not only the marathon, learns how to do the triathlon.
Yeah, now, this is the Ironman we're talking about.
The Ironman.
Now, people who don't know what that involves, you're talking about a 112-mile bike ride, a full 26.2-mile marathon, and I think around a 2-mile swim in open water.
And the other thing is that when he'd do these events all around the world, his times would be better than 80% of the able-bodied athletes that were performing the same event.
But we're not done with the story. That's
no,
we're
not.
That's the first
no.
incident was the bus hitting him.
Correct.
And then he does all of this,
Correct.
and now another tragedy.
Yes, I'm sitting in my office.
Yeah.
And I get a phone call if I would not meet with this individual and his family who were down at Mission Hospital. He had come to Orange County to participate in the fundraiser for the Orange County Performing Arts, who was doing a triathlon event. And they had closed off the streets in Mission Viejo, somewhere around that lake area. And unfortunately, a sheriff, one of the sheriffs, directed a car onto a closed racing course. Oh, no. He comes over the hill on his bicycle at a high rate of speed, slams into the car that never should have been there, and ends up a quadriplegic.
Oh my God.
That still does not hold him back.
Yeah.
He becomes an inspirational speaker. He starts a foundation. He helps a fellow from Ghana. They provided bikes to people who had disabilities, who went across Ghana to draw attention to disabled athletes and what they can accomplish. Again, as I say, no feet no shoes until I see no feet. Here's a gentleman who's been through amputee. Now he's quadriplegic. He wins the ESPY award with ESPN, is featured on the Oprah show for his special awards and all his special accomplishments. Gives lectures all over the country to young people to inspire them not to give up and not to overcome anything that gets in their way or anything that prevents them from reaching their absolute ability to succeed. And then unfortunately, at the age of 47, he gets an infection, which is a common danger in people who are quadriplegics. Urinary tract infections can become serious, serious problems. And unfortunately, it became so serious that it took Jim's life at 47 years of age. They're doing fantastic. These are great human interest stories. But we should never lose sight of the fact that they're struggling every day. Jim McLaren struggled every day up until the time he died at 47. These clients are great examples of courage, commitment, fortitude, but it's not to say that because Laura Small is a junior at Arizona State or that Jim Knob has been on television and doing acting, that they're not really struggling every day, because we all get carried away with what we believe are our own problems in our own lives, all three of us sitting here.
We're out of time, Wylie. You're going to have to come back on and share some more of these stories because they're absolutely incredible.
I have two other great ones.
And until we see it in book form, the only way to get these stories is right here on Dialogue with Doty and Dodge.
Okay.
Thanks, Wylie, for being on the show.
Yes.
All right, very
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.